Right now. It's going to be a bit of a babble video. A few things I got to cover. Um, where to start? Okay, so the Bank of Canada is going to be raising interest rates sooner than they thought. Sometime around March, they were talking, maybe even sooner. Uh, so with Canada, our interest rates are. There's room for them to drop them. There's also room for them to raise them. They're somewhere in between. Okay, and this is not only Canada that will be doing this. There's going to be interest rates when they start going up. So will the inflation. Now, the other thing is that they're also talking about a housing. Again, the mainstream media is bipolar. They talk about a recovery and growing economies in Canada and the United States, but then they keep saying things like, "Well, it's not really growing. It's kind of just more like stagnant and staying there." And there's like no velocity of money in the system. People just aren't spending money. They don't have money. They don't have money to spare. So the thing is that they're worried about the housing industry big time. There's a bubble. And this is coming off mainstream media, CBC basically. It's like they're like, well, people are, money's cheap right now to borrow, and their debt's way too high, and they know that it's going to turn into a problem in the near future. Maybe this year, next year, whatever. And then as soon as they push up interest rates, of course, that's going to make borrowing more expensive. They're going to get less of it, right? So this is a problem I have with the housing industry having anything to do with the economy in the sense of, that it gets bailouts. I say, all these banks, if they want to lend out money to subprime mortgages, some subprime car loans and all that stuff, fine. Let the banks take the fall, not the taxpayer. Now the thing is the bail-in documents are already, pretty much every country now where they can basically, if the banks, because you're no longer a depositor, you are now a creditor. Doesn't matter what bank you pick. Pretty much all the major banks are basically, if they get into trouble, they can steal from your account as they see fit. I think there will be a revolt if that happens. Now, there wasn't the revolt in Cyprus. Cyprus was the test run. But and the people there are still they're still hurting. You know what I mean? Like they're still limited to what they can take out and stuff like that. So I think the thing is that they want to do this incrementally so that people don't there isn't a run on the banks. But at some point, people are going to have to make a run on the banks. You don't have to do it overnight, but it would be a good idea to have at least some of your savings somewhere outside the banking system. Where do you put it? Put it under your mattress. Put it, and bury it in the ground, wherever. Thing is, it's not getting interest in there anyway, and you just clearly cannot trust the banking system. So this is going to blindside a lot of people. And there's more that, there's a lot of mainstream people out there starting to talk about how, a major collapse. There's what's his name? Jim? Not Jim Rogers. It's like, anyway, the guy was saying, he wrote the book, The Death of Money. I haven't read the book, but I listened to the guy speak from time to time. And one thing he was saying is, we could be possibly heading into a 25 to 30 year depression. We're already in a depression. Again, he says the difference is that what he was hired by was the CIA to spot trends so that if they could see a crash coming soon enough that they could take actions. And they got this plan, which you have to buy his book to get it, called the Day After Plan. And who knows what I've already seen things on it, kind of how they bring in the one world currency and stuff like that. The IMF is leveraged only 3 times. Everybody else is leveraged, like gold is leveraged like 200 to 1 or something ridiculous like that. Don't quote me on that. Meaning for every 1 ounce of gold, there's about 200 or 300 people that have claim to it. Okay, so when people have their little slips and they want to go and get gold, get their gold, they ain't getting it. Countries right now are going in a panic, and you're seeing all kinds of countries going around buying gold. Or not only buying gold, but asking for their old gold back. Now, recently, the Netherlands has taken possession of some gold, and mind you, this comes after the MH17 investigation, the one that's kind of, off limits to the public. So are they blackmailing people to say, well, you know what, we will release these documents if you don't give us their gold. So then there's Belgium buying all, the mystery buyers in Belgium buying all the U.S. treasuries. Again, it's still QE. They're just trying to find places to hide the money they're printing. Again, debt and bombs. That's all that's going around. Now, one of the things he mentioned was to, get into different things. He says, whenever you hear people like Warren Buffett or whatever, they'll tell you to do something. George Soros, all these idiot, these guys are jerks. Especially George Soros. He's probably, the most wicked person on the planet. Warren Buffett, I think, is just he's just a businessman, you know what I mean? He's a douchebag, but he's just a businessman, So they'll tell you to do one thing, and then they'll do something else. For example, Warren Buffett basically bought up, rail lines all over the place and fuel refineries. So now, if everything collapsed, again, this is the same thing that the Russians did when they supposedly collapsed. What they did is diverted all the money to the military complex, and they sold their resources to oligarchs pennies on the dollar. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what Warren Buffett and these type of guys are doing. Now, they're buying it ahead of time, so they're not getting it pennies on the dollar, but it doesn't matter. Why? Because their investment. Okay, so you own oil, okay? Oil refineries, okay? And you own a rail line on top of that. You got basically, it's basically pipeline by rail, and that's what we're doing now. But if you own that, in a collapse, anything that moves, you're making money off of it. They're buying land, stuff like that. So yeah, he's talked. He says, those are good things. Water rights, he says, was another good thing to get into. Problem is I don't think that, like, if this collapse goes the way, again, like in the 1930s, people weren't rich to begin with. Yeah, there was the Roaring '20s, but Roaring '20s means just people were living it up. They weren't rich. You know what I mean? Yeah, Al Capone did okay. Till they got him for racketeering. But yeah, I mean, they busted him for taxes. Okay, that's the best they could do. Yeah, and he amassed wealth that was unfathomable for the time, even for this day and age. It would have been. It was unfathomable, the wealth that he got out of the bootlegging. Okay? But the thing is the average person in the 1920s, okay, didn't have hydro. They didn't have those kind of expenses. Okay? Their dollar was worth more. I mean, a loaf of bread was probably about 5-10 cents, whatever it was. You might have been making 20-30 cents an hour, maybe 50 cents an hour if you had a really high-paying job, I mean, you'll have to look back at what the prices were, and you could probably buy like a Coke for a penny or something like that, Well, I don't know if Coca-Cola was around then. Whenever they came around, I think they came around in the 1930s. But the point is people, would work all week. Friday night, grab the girl of their dreams, go out and do the jitterbug, you know what I mean? And they would just basically, swing dance dive, which is really fun. Yeah, if you ever go to a swing dance bar, yeah, that's fun. Yeah. And the girls there, they like to dance too, and it's fun, it's just a lot of fun. And it's just happy music, happy, why? Because, no difference back then than it is now. Long work week, everything, work is work, and that's miserable. You need to let loose. And the people knew how to live. And they lived it up, but the average person was still poor, But then in the late 1929, the stock market crashed. And when it crashed, basically, people that had it the worst were the people in the cities, the ones that didn't have farmland, the ones that didn't, that relied on big companies that were leveraged, with the Ponzi schemes and, what's the guy, something Ponzi, whatever, like he basically, evil man, con artist, So anyway, bankers started getting knocked off for committing suicide, pick one, kind of like what we're seeing today. And all the things that were happening just before the 1929 stock market crash are happening today. The difference today is they just changed the law so they can manipulate it and kick the can down the road a little further. But the further they kick the can down the road, the worse it is. Now, in the 1929 to 1930s, the 1933, is it 1933 stock market crash? Yeah. So, and started the Great Depression. People just couldn't find work anywhere. The bread lines were bread lines. They waited for a loaf of bread. Everywhere you go, there was these transients that would jump onto trains. The trains were just full of these transients. They would stop off at a town. There would be billboards saying, transients keep moving along, no work here. So a lot of guys just walked into the bush, never to be seen again. I'm sure that type of thing. Okay. Other people that were already poor but living in the countryside, they ate squirrel. They had like squirrel kebabs, squirrel souvlaki, squirrel steaks, squirrel soup, whatever, and it's like they ate whatever they could find, right? A lot of people didn't have that kind of, they didn't have the land, they didn't have the resource. So the people that were already poor they didn't have far to fall anyway. People did lose their homes, people lost farms and stuff like that. But most of the people that had farms and stuff like that ended up doing better, because they had a resource. At least they could sell the eggs, they could do this, that type of thing. And you have to understand there was basically no income tax until after this crash, right? So, so people could, they bought their land. It was their land, didn't mean there wasn't property taxes and stuff like that, but for the most part, there was no taxes, right? So the cost of living was low, the dollar value was high, and it's lost 90 some odd % of its value since then. Hey, Gazoo, what are you doing? Got a big fat cat under there. Gazoo, what are you doing? What's up, buddy? Yeah, so anyway, so I got a big fat cat saying, what's up? So people didn't do very well in the beginning, and then of course, World War II comes around, and the rest is history. And of course, manufacturing booms from the World War II. Women really get into the workplace, for the first time, where they're really, really dominant in the workplace because all the men were off fighting, and there was all kinds of manufacturing jobs. The war was basically built by women and fought by men. Team effort. There you go. Okay, and then after World War II, men come back. They got nothing to do. They start building cars. They start doing other things. Okay, so and then it's like, okay, let's build suburbias everywhere. Like just big. The Jetson age had kind of arrived. Kind of did, kind of didn't. But everybody was pretty much working. Again, not getting rich, but they were holding on okay. Now, when we fast forward to the 1960s, another war, there was basically right out of World War II right into Korea, but Korea wasn't anything like World War II. It wasn't a global war. Most people didn't even know where the country was and stuff like that, and it wasn't sucking up all the resources of the country. It was unpopular, like all wars, and then right out of Korea, bang, pretty much straight into Vietnam, and when the Vietnam War comes along, again, there's quite a bit of manufacturing took place and stuff like that. It was an economy, very unpopular, but people started to change and stuff like that. With all the revolutions that came in, the color revolution, the sexual revolution, all that stuff, right? So that comes in, and then this is where I think where most of our tyrants come from right now. Very left-wing, very socialistic and stuff like that. 1970s come in. Not a big change, but major changes did happen. The gold standard left pretty much every country. Left the United States, it left Canada, that type of thing. And then the planting of the seed of the stuff you're seeing now that was basically planted in the 1970s. 1980s, we start seeing technology booms with computers. The 1990s, the internet's, making life easier for everybody. Early 2000s, 9/11 happens. The perpetual wars begin that we're going to go on forever and ever and ever, and then the wealth starts to really disappear. Okay, it's bringing us up to today. You can't fight, a 13-year war, okay, and not have it affect your country financially. Okay, so money's been printed, all kinds of things that are bad and toxic in the system. The only way to get out of this $17-18 trillion deficit that the Americans have is to do the right thing and basically forgive the debt. They have to do kind of like the Iceland solution. Put your corrupt bankers and politicians in jail and forgive a good proportion of the debt. Okay? But this will mean, no matter which way you go, it's going to hurt. Because people now are not living in a 1920s style lifestyle. They don't get up in the morning and, basically have to work for you want water, you got to go get it, that type of thing. They don't live like that anymore. We're very, very, advanced, indoor plumbing, that type of thing, the hydro, and plus the debt burden The debt burden of people. This is something they didn't have in the 1920s. Is yeah, people were poor, but they didn't waste money on goods and services. They bought necessities. That's it. That's all they bought was necessities. And then, of course, you're a teenager. You bought yourself the Studebaker of the day, so to speak, the fanciest car, to impress all the girls. That's what you bought. You bought yourself a good rifle to go hunting. You bought yourself maybe a xylophone. Listen to your favorite tunes. That's it. If you look at how people live in the 1920s, they weren't consumers. They were, if we don't need it, we don't buy it. They bought tools. They bought anything that was a necessity. Now we got houses full of junk. We got all kinds of junk in my house. Like my nephew got that. You know what I mean? Like that. That's like my Aiden spaceship. That's my little nephew's spaceship. And it's a little jumper, and he jumps around in it and stuff like that. I'd like to have an adult one like that. I'd be right beside him while he's jumping, going, yeah! I'd be like, yeah, this is awesome. But anyway, we could live without it, so all these luxury things that you get, and then the cost of living, the hydro, the land taxes, or rent, or, you just add it up, internet bill, anything, stove breaks, whatever, vehicles. I mean, you want to stay poor, get a vehicle, especially the jalopies that are like around here, all rust buckets, right? So with that going on, right now people have, their debt burden has never been higher. The income disparity's never been higher. And we have massive, massive bread lines in the States. There's bread lines here the same way there is in the States. Difference is you don't see the bread lines. You have to keep in mind that the actual official unemployment rate in the States is around somewhere between 23 and 33%. Okay? Basically, 92 to 96 million people are out of work. Now, you'll see things like, for example, on RT America, the girl there, the resident or whatever, pretty girl, does a little commentary. She was talking about how they did a poll and said, well, people just don't want to work, because they're getting, EBT cards, welfare basically. And food, food stamps, that type of thing. That's what the EBT cards, so it used to be a food stamp, a voucher that you take to the store. Now it's just a little card. So, it's electronic now. So the bread lines are electronic. But you still have 92 to 94, 96 million people out of work out of a population of 312 to 318 million. Okay? This isn't on the mainstream news, but trust me, they're well aware of the bread lines in the States. The problem is what do you cut first? The military spending, the police state, or the bread lines? Why? Because the higher it goes, the more devalued the money becomes, the more they have to print, the more devalued the money comes. At some point, somebody's not going to get paid. It becomes completely insolvent. It won't matter how much money they print. And that's starting to happen now where they're printing all this money, but the situation isn't getting any better. So this, and I agree with Greg Mannarino on this one, that when this crash comes, it will basically, the amount of death that is going to take place, and yes, even in the United States, people who will not be able to have health care anymore. Look, health care is ailing in all Western countries anyway. I mean, here in Canada, you can get treatment for just about anything, but you might die waiting for treatment. And that's the thing about the system, right? There's only so much money to go around, and the system is way overburdened. All these people, retirees, that have to get back into the workforce. Picture, you're 71 years old and all of a sudden your pension's no longer coming in. Who's going to hire a 71-year-old? Look what we've seen in Greece, Spain, Italy. It was in Italy or in Greece where there was a guy, he was 71, 72, lost his pension, just wrote a I'm sorry kind of note, walked out into the middle of the town square, blew his head off. Basically, like, I'm too old to start over again. What am I going to do? So that kind of desperation will hit. So the suicide rate now is higher than it's ever been. You have a society that's completely whacked out on drugs because there's a pill for that. If you're on drugs, there's a pill for that. You know what I mean? Everything is drug related, right? So you got all these people that are addicted to like prescription drugs. All this stuff disappears in a collapse. Okay. People that need heart medication, all that stuff that disappears in a collapse. Okay, and a lot of people don't get that. That's where you get your death tolls, is, the people that aren't healthy to begin with. And then, of course, there's just the people starving to death, and then the people that get shot trying to steal a loaf of bread type of deal. Same thing that happened in the 1930s, but just on a mass scale, right? So, I mean, it was big enough in the 1930s, but, this will be global. It already is global. I mean, look, all these countries like Bahrain and stuff like that, you have to understand, okay, we used to produce a lot of food for the third world, okay? And they used to keep at least 2 years supply of like grain and wheat and stuff like that ahead in case of a bad crop season. Right now, it's like 8 months at best. And 80% of the crops that are being grown now in Canada and the United States are basically for ethanol. Okay, so that means you've got 20% of the crops that you normally have. If we have a harsh system coming in, and this is where the perfect storm kind of comes in. You've got the people out there that believe in global warming. Unfortunately, we're in a global cooling trend. And the predictions now is, and it doesn't, again, take it with a grain of salt, but that we're in a cooling trend. We've been in a cooling trend for the last 19 years. That yes, there's some areas that are warmer, but, for the most part, we're in a cooling trend. And one of the indications of that is all the storms you see. Storms are powerful when it's cold, not when it's hot. So the thing is you've got a possibility of a 30-year cooling trend, meaning that temperatures are going to be lower than average. How much lower? I don't know. That's going to affect your crops. So that means you're probably going to get less time to get a crop. Okay, when crops are at an all-time low, when you're going to get a stock market crash. So the people in the third world that they're already starving to death because there's not enough food going to them. And these people, they were never taught to fend for themselves. They were always taught that, an airplane's going to come in and drop you off a bag of rice or wheat or whatever, And plus with all the other problems they have in those countries. So those people are just, they're already starving to death. So now take even more away from them, and it's going to work its way back here. And this is why I say put food away. Hunting, a lot of people have misconceptions about hunting. This year has been a horrible year for hunters in my area. I mean, very few. Yeah, the odd guy got a nice buck, but most people didn't get anything. Most hunters are not successful. Trapping is a little different, but I look at these like kind of Bear Grylls kind of trapping things, trying to trap squirrels and stuff. You're not going to survive eating squirrel for very long, or rabbit. Why? There's just not enough. You need more than that. It's a good supplement, but even at that, you need to eat like 8 squirrels a day just to survive. Meat's going to become scarce. People who raise their own animals, they're the ones that are going to fare off the best. Little things like chickens and stuff like that can go a long way, particularly chickens, because you can get eggs. Eggs are high in protein, and when you're starving to death, protein's good for you. It's going to help you, but you need to mix it up. You need to have other things too, right? So I think what we're going to see very, very clearly is that, money just, wheelbarrows of money just won't buy you anything, but there'll be nothing to buy, and but agriculture, like right now we have like 3% of the farmers we had in the year 1900, and it's all big agro, again, and they're like, like basically unified crops. They make all corn. They do one thing. Everything is based on wheat now. All our food is based on wheat. We don't have diversified crops anymore. I mean, a little bit, but not like it was, right? So that said, people who don't have access to land or like that. I mean, here I'm lucky because it's all family land and stuff like that. And but you can't just grab seeds, throw them in the ground, and expect them to grow. It doesn't work like that. Fuel just to run a tractor. To do it by hand is very, very, very difficult. There are permaculture ideas and stuff like that can help. But again, another problem will be is that people will see you, if they see you with, a garden and stuff like that, people are going to just come and destroy it just because you have something they don't. It's called, one guy put it well, like prepper envy or whatever. Haves and have-nots, right? And that's what we're talking about in this next class. It's going to be the ultimate haves and have-nots. Now the problem is that almost immediately, especially the next time around, people lost investments the last time around in 2008. They lost investments, okay? That's not the same as somebody dipping directly into your bank account. The reason why they want gun control so much in the United States is they know that when J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all them come out, and the Lehman Brothers and all them, and the Koch brothers and all them come out and say, we're insolvent again, we're just going to do a bail-in. People are not only going to take to the streets, it's the snipers. I mean, these people, again, I'm not making any threats, but these people will not be able to move. There will be no such thing as a world elite. There'll be, the rats and the hunted. They will never be able to afford enough security. again, the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, these people, I don't know where they can even think they can hide. When they rip off somebody, not, the average guy like me who has like $50 in the bank. No. The average guy like me is going to go to, well, not me, myself, because it'll be pointless, but they're going to take to the street. Where's my money? The guys that they're ripping off that have 100,000, 200,000, 2 million, 3 million, 100 million in the bank, 400 million in the bank. These guys typically have the 130,000 under the pillowcase, or in the pillowcase to go hire a hitman and say, knock that guy off, he stole my money. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. And you're going to see lots of that. You're going to see a lot of broken legs. Look, we're already seeing what I think banker number, the official now number for 2014 is banker number 50, but I think it's well over 100 if you add up all the people that are tied into it, including reporters and stuff like that, into all these banker suicides. And they're all bizarre. Again, these are what I call, maybe you can call them spooks with a conscience. I call them the hellhounds. These are people that are being suicided. The most recent guy who basically slit his own throat, slit his wrist, slit his own throat, and then fell on his knife, but they can't find the knife apparently. But it was a suicide. Okay. yeah. It's like the guy who shoots himself, earlier on in the year, shoots himself 9 times in the back of the head with a pass load. Now with a pass load, yes, the thing can jump on you. You can get 4 or 5 shots where it goes. I've had it jump, and you can get 2 or 3 shots like that, sure. But to do it to the back of your head, and then the cops are like, well, we couldn't find the pass load, so maybe squirrels or something carried away. Are you kidding me? Like, at least come up with something. Well, maybe maybe the guy was murdered and they took the nail gun with them. No, it was a suicide. That's right. Okay, so like I say, just watch for elites dropping like flies. That's an indicator of a collapsing market. Now, there are some things that are doing good, but the thing is everything is linked. It's the mountain climber effect. One falls, we all fall, right? So I'm thinking, the best thing you can do, because we should have collapsed by now. But what's happening is the slow bleed out, the wealth gap, the rich and the poor, the haves and have-nots, right? Class warfare, all that stuff that's going on. You're seeing it in a societal decay kind of mode. Ferguson is a good example of a societal decay. Like, this is when, again, somebody put it very well. Societal decay 101. When people lose everything, they lose it. Bingo. Joe Salente is correct on that. When people lose everything, they lose it. And I'm going to do a societal decay videos again in the series, and I think thank you whoever made that comment the other day. It gave me an idea for a video. Because I was trying to think of the next societal decay video I was going to do, and I want to make it relevant to how we're living today and everything like that. And I mean, people are losing everything. It's not so much that they're losing everything; they just can't afford anything. And with that, it's basically just the poorest of the poor. They say that if income goes 50% below, actual calculated what a minimum wage could be, if it goes below 50% of that, you get a revolt. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I believe it. If approval ratings on politicians go below a certain, you'll get a revolt. Again, with the game Tropico I used to play all the time, every time I got below 26%, I always had the guy coming out there with the AK going, bang, 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 bang. And he started going around shooting up the place and stuff like that until you made him happy again. And usually by that time, then another guy would come out, and actually, you're in this little boat, and they're like, El Presidente, maybe they do not appreciate your genius of governing, like that type of thing. I get kicked off the island like all the time. Well, sometimes I did really good. But it was like, I'm sure there's a threshold where, again, people just will not put up with any more BS. And you are starting to see it in the States big time. Again, if you could see the warning signs, if you could see the subliminals, of, okay, well, Ferguson, is it really about a white cop shooting a black kid? Not really. That's the catalyst, maybe. That's the spark to get it going. But there's a lot more than that. I mean, again, research, unarmed white people getting shot by cops, there's almost as many. It's just that doesn't go down. But they're bringing this out for a reason. Again, the mainstream media is pushing this for a reason. Of all the other issues that you could be paying attention to. Thing is, it becomes insolvent at some point. So whether they're rioting because the bankers have stole everything and start knocking off politicians, I'm not making any threats, but just look around the world how this happens, or they're doing it because some incident in the street, it won't matter. At the end of the day, you have rioting in the streets. You have that type of thing. And I was listening to, just to finish up, listening to Alex Jones the other night, and I got to say the Dream Team, Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs there, boy, they did a hell of a job in Ferguson. They really did do a good job, and their coverage, and stuff like that. But there was a guy that was yelling at Jakari, and Jakari, he handled himself really, really well. But there were some things that the guy was saying, and you might not agree with it, but it was pure honesty coming out of this guy. Yeah, the guy was sitting there, he was looking for a fight, sure. But he's telling Jakari that he sold out, sold everybody out, calling them terrorists and stuff like that. And Alex got slagged like big time last night from the making of this video for saying that the people that broke down the, break down the stores and everything like that, we're doing acts of terrorism. Alex is right. I mean, if you look up the definition of terrorism, to spark fear and stuff like that, create chaos, that's exactly what these thugs did. But people were upset that like Alex, like you're always saying, look, they're trying to make everybody a terrorist, and you're going against your own principles. These guys are thugs, yes. So the semantics of, what Alex should have called, Alex should just come out and say, yeah, okay, well, I should have said thugs, whatever. Don't. He's worked pretty. You might not like everything Alex does, and yes, he sensationalizes a lot of stuff, but he is a good source of information. Okay, so yeah, to get caught up on the semantics of what's a terrorist, what's a thug, I mean, at the end of the day, the building's still burning, and and the society, that whole area of Ferguson is pretty much destroyed. So it's not good, no matter how you look at it. There's no way to sugarcoat this. But the guy that was yelling at Jakari said something very interesting. And I agree with all the things Jakari was saying. He said, look, I didn't call black people terrorists. I called people that are doing this terrorists. But people are pissed off at the term terrorist. That's a big one. That's a big one, right? Because everybody's considered a terrorist nowadays. I'm considered a terrorist for making videos that are anti-corruption, in the government. That's considered terrorism. Everything's considered terrorism. So yeah, I can see how people get upset on that term of terrorism. So the semantics, yeah, he should have said, yeah, okay, well, sorry, I should have said thug instead of, I agree with you, I'll retract my statement the next time I go live. Fair enough, But the thing that the guy said, okay, and it made perfect sense. He goes, okay, the cop shot the kid, whatever, we've had enough, we're fed up, and stuff like that. And, Jakari's like, well, yeah, but it doesn't give you the right to go around, burning down your own community and stuff like that. They're both right. But here's the thing that the guy said, and this is the nail on the head. This is the thing the stuff I'm talking about, the Hydra, the Hellhound guys, this is what makes them tick. Whether you agree with this guy's statement or not, doesn't matter. But he says, we're fed up with this, we're fed up with that. This is, he says, this is a reaction basically, to violence. He says, this is what the reaction to violence looks like. This is what the reaction to the way, like I'm probably misquoting him a bit, but that's the nail on the head. This is what, protesting, this is what an uprising looks like. This is it. It's violent. It's not pretty. This is what people who've been pushed too far, whether you agree with what they're doing or not, is real. This is what fed up looks like. This is what, this is what a reaction to that kind of violence looks like. And he's right. He is 100% right. And that's what you're going to see, regardless of color of skin. This time they were picking on the blacks for this, sure. And it seemed to have died down, because again, you're seeing people all saying, okay, stop burning down your community. But again, we'll look who's burning down the communities. It's people coming in from outside, right? But this is what it looks like. People are going to that. And then you had a lot of people calling in on Alex saying, Alex, you're always saying, don't do anything bad. Don't do anything, when do we take the place back? Again, right now what I'm hearing from the people is we've had enough. So you are going to see a massive revolt in the States at some point. And now everybody's hypersensitive. And it's basically at the point where the incident won't matter. Now, the elites think they can control this, but what they don't realize, again, when you look to South America, all these dictators and stuff like that, yeah, some of them last longer than others, but at some point there's always a coup, there's always a revolt, they're unpredictable. Yes, Kazoo! Cat. Unpredictable like my cat. Yeah! You're interrupting my video again. Unpredictable, isn't it? But people are saying, well, when we got the Second Amendment, why aren't we using it? That type of thing. You're not going to go outside; it's too cold. Well, in and out. Move it. Boot. So anyway, point is that people are they've had enough. Like that's what rage looks like. They're fed up. Okay, the incident doesn't really matter. So again, when you're looking at this whole Ferguson thing, it's not really about this cop. It's not. People have fixated on it, but it's the deeper issues that are there that are going to blindside a lot of people. Especially the people that are protesting, thinking it's just about police brutality and the police state and stuff like that. It's more than that. It's the people have had enough. When they lose everything, they lose it. Rationality will not be a part of the new paradigm. It will be Hail Hydra. You know what I mean? And we've talked about that. So with that, again, I say by this summer. Right now we're going into the winter, so it's cooler. But I'm thinking that the police state and all that. It's again, how good is it really? No, they will not. There's not enough military soldiers. There's not enough DHS. There's not enough FBI, CIA, NSA, Marines to take on a civil war. They're just not ready for that. They don't have enough ammo. They don't have enough tanks. They don't have enough helicopters. Yeah, they're going to win a lot of battles, but every time they lose a guy, there's no one going to be there to replace them. So you might have 1 million guys, but if you're losing 3,000-4,000 guys a day, not to mention the people that are just jumping ship, saying I'm not going to be shooting at my people, you're going to have an actual coup in the United States. It's coming. Will it happen to Obama? I'm surprised, and I'm not advocating for this at all, but I'm amazed the man is still walking around alive. I have a feeling that's probably going to be the last thing they'll pull just to enrage people. Again, they want chaos. And the idea is if you're paying attention to that, you're not paying attention to the banksters, you're not paying attention. But the banksters, they're nervous, they're scared. They know that the pitchfork revolution is coming from. The dumbed down masses or the uninformed masses, whichever you want to look at it as, they're not worried about them. Why? Because those people just go out in the street and burn things down and riot and do stuff like that. What they're worried about is the people that have names, the people that know where to look, the people that are going to say, you know what, you can go to your bunker, but we'll be in front of the door waiting for you, or you go in that bunker, we're going to weld the door shut, you ain't coming out, So, I hope you got that. I hope that 15, use that 15 years of food wisely. You know what I mean? These people, they've signed their own death warrants. Just by the chaos they're going to, again, it's not the commoner, it's going to be the people that, okay, well, I know this banker made this happen, and it won't even come down to testifying. It'll even come down to just I'm going to knock off, this banker's going to knock off that banker before, they do it the other way. It's mob. It's the same thing the mob does. Vinny's going to knock off Bruno before Bruno gets a chance to knock off Vinny. You know what I mean? It's going to be like that. So these elites, I think they're kind of it's like, oh my God, what have we done? We're not going to be able to control this, And that's why they want to get us into World War III. That's why, if they could get people to rally behind World War III, they'd love that. Why? Because you can kill a lot of people, rebalance the books, that type of thing, or keep cheating the system. Thing is, these people are psychos. They're never going to stop unless somebody stops them, right? Problem is we don't have the brave law enforcement and military out there and judges and lawyers to, say, okay, you know what, rather than give Jamie Dimon and the Koch brothers and all these guys fines for cooking the books, how about we do something else? Number one, let's not bail them out. Number two, let's put them in jail, But no matter what, when this thing comes down fully, by that time no one's going to notice. Why? Because we're not going to have far to fall. People are already completely broke. But it's when they cut off the bread lines, that's when you're going to see the chaos in the street. At that point, and the police are, they're starting to get smart enough to know that, say, hey, wait a minute, we're going to be the ones that are going to have to take the brunt for the bad decisions of the politicians, and that's why, like I say, you got these group of people here being protected by this group of people here against all these people over here, you know what I mean? And there's way more of them. It's just a numbers game, it's like, what do you call it, the human waves of people. They don't even have to be armed. It's just the human waves of people. They're just going to rip you apart. They'll beat you with sticks. They'll pull your arms off. You know what I mean? It's this has happened many times in history. So I'm thinking, with all that's going on, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But again, I haven't seen anything that You see like a little bit of a economic growth here, a little bit, but there's no velocity. It's the world is stagnant right now, and they're predicting another collapse in 2015 in like Greece, Spain, Italy. They're going to be hitting. They're done. They're done. And the thing is you have all these government workers out there. These are the people I think are going to have it the hardest because their union and their pensions and stuff. Look, in Detroit, they're finding out. You know what? They don't have money for the pensions they promised. You're on the work till you die program. And that's just the way it's going to be. It's going to be no different for me or anybody else. Thing is when we see all these people running around with all these bonuses and money of the taxpayer, again, when you have 85 of the richest people in the world own over half of the world's wealth, I don't care if the people did it honestly. I don't care if they had a business idea and it just worked out really well. Fine, find fault with that, okay, But what I do have a problem with is when, like, for example, the Koch brothers, these people are super, super ultra rich. They're of the, they're like the, in the top 10, probably in the top 20 most richest people on the planet. But would they be as rich if they didn't keep getting bailouts? Again, Warren Buffett, if he didn't get all the tax breaks, those things, that's what people are mad about. So when we look at it like that, okay, like these ultra rich, I mean, what are they going to do when they have all the money? Because the only way you can control people is if you have money in the system. So this idea of, again, is, China is kind of like the blueprint of how they want all countries, control over everything, the internet, all that type of stuff. But they also need to instate a Saudi Arabian-style dictatorship first because they have to kill off a lot of people. Because, again, like Letterman Lenin, who was so ecstatic when 20 million people starved to death, because now we can balance the economy and we can do all kinds of great things. He was happy about that. That's the mindset these people have. They are complete, utter psychopaths. Maybe they're communists, maybe they're just Satanists. I think, the idea, I mean, hey, they could just be playing the Illuminati card game. Who knows what their motivations really truly are. But at the end of the day, to me, Satanism explains what it fits for a lot of the things they're doing. It's like, how can you do all these evil things with, like, it seems, like the order out of chaos stuff and all that. It's like, okay, well, you'd only do that if you were an extremely evil person. Who knows? Who knows why they do it? Again, but they're psychopaths, right? They can't stop. They have to keep doing, and they keep telling you what they're going to do next. I think the next one, again, a civil war in the States is inevitable at this point. People are the divide and conquer. Again, Obama has done his job very well. It's not by accident with the divide and conquer. The last phase of it is, the Amero, opening up the North American Union. I don't think that's going to go over very well because I think that becomes a do or die kind of thing. Hey, Missy. Speedy little cat. Are you a catsicle? Are you a catsicle? Yes. So anyway, I guess I'm babbling on now, so I guess I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, you would like to support the channel, there'll be a link down below. And I thank you to everybody who has supported. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, and like. Be true to yourself, be true to others, and always, always do the right thing. Have a great day, eh? G'day, hi, and welcome. I don't know what video I'm going to make right now. It's going to be a bit of a babble video. A few things I got to cover. Where to start? Okay, so the Bank of Canada is going to be raising interest rates sooner than they thought. Sometime around March, they were talking. Maybe even sooner. So with Canada, our interest rates are, there's room for them to drop them. There's also room for them to raise them. They're somewhere in between. Okay, and this is not only Canada that will be doing this. There's going to be interest rates when they start going up. So will the inflation. Now, the other thing is that they're also talking about housing. Again, the mainstream media is bipolar. They talk about a recovery and growing economies in Canada and the United States, but then they keep saying things like, "Well, it's not really growing. It's kind of just more like stagnant and staying there." And there's like no velocity of money in the system. People just aren't spending money. They don't have money. They don't have money to spare. So the thing is that they're worried about the housing industry big time. So, there's a bubble. And this is coming off mainstream media, CBC basically. And it's like they're like, well, people are, money's cheap right now to borrow, and their debt's way too high, and they know that it's going to turn into a problem in the near future. Maybe this year, next year, whatever. And then as soon as they push up interest rates, of course, that's going to make borrowing more expensive, they're going to get less of it, right? So this is a problem I have with the housing industry having anything to do with the economy in the sense of, that it gets bailouts. I say, all these banks, if they want to lend out money to subprime mortgages, some subprime car loans and all that stuff, fine. Let the banks take the fall, not the taxpayer. Now, the thing is the bail-in documents are already, pretty much every country now where they can basically, if the banks, because you're no longer a depositor, you are now a creditor. Doesn't matter what bank you pick. Pretty much all the major banks are basically, if they get into trouble, they can steal from your account as they see fit. I think there will be a revolt if that happens. Now, there wasn't the revolt in Cyprus. Cyprus was the test run. But and the people there are still they're still hurting. You know what I mean? Like they're still limited to what they can take out and stuff like that. So I think the thing is that they want to do this incrementally so that people don't there isn't a run on the banks. But at some point, people are going to have to make a run on the banks. You don't have to do it overnight, but it would be a good idea to have at least some of your savings somewhere outside the banking system. Where do you put it? Put it under your mattress. Put it, and bury it in the ground, wherever. Thing is, it's not getting interest in there anyway, and you just clearly cannot trust the banking system. So this is going to blindside a lot of people. And there's more that, there's a lot of mainstream people out there starting to talk about how, a major collapse. There's, what's his name? Jim? Not Jim Rogers. It's like, anyway, the guy was saying, he wrote the book, The Death of Money. I haven't read the book, but I listened to the guy speak from time to time. And one thing he was saying is, we could be possibly heading into a 25 to 30-year depression. We're already in a depression. Again, he says the difference is that what he was hired by was the CIA to spot trends so that if they could see a crash coming soon enough that they could take actions. And they got this plan, which you have to buy his book to get it, called the Day After Plan. And who knows what I've already seen things on it, kind of how they bring in the one world currency and stuff like that. The IMF is leveraged only 3 times. Everybody else is leveraged, like gold is leveraged like 200 to 1 or something ridiculous like that. Don't quote me on that. Meaning for every 1 ounce of gold, there's about 200 or 300 people that have claim to it. Okay, so when people have their little slips and they want to go and get gold, get their gold, they ain't getting it. Countries right now are going in a panic, and you're seeing all kinds of countries going around buying gold. Not only buying gold, but asking for their old gold back. Now, recently, the Netherlands has taken possession of some gold, and mind you, this comes after the MH17 investigation, the one that's kind of, off limits to the public. So are they blackmailing people to say, well, you know what, we will release these documents if you don't give us their gold. So and then there's, Belgium buying all, the mystery buyers in Belgium buying all the U.S. treasuries. Again, it's still QE. They're just trying to find places to hide the money they're printing. Again, debt and bombs. That's all that's going around. Now, one of the things he mentioned was to, get into different things. He says, whenever you hear people like Warren Buffett or whatever, they'll tell you to do something. George Soros, all these idiots, these guys are jerks, especially George Soros. He's probably, the most wicked person on the planet. Warren Buffett, I think, is just he's just a businessman, you know what I mean? He's a douchebag, but he's just a businessman, So they'll tell you to do one thing, and then they'll do something else. For example, Warren Buffett basically bought up, rail lines all over the place and fuel refineries. So now, if everything collapsed, again, this is the same thing that the Russians did when they supposedly collapsed. What they did is diverted all the money to the military complex, and they sold their resources to oligarchs pennies on the dollar. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what Warren Buffett and these type of guys are doing. Now, they're buying it ahead of time, so they're not getting it pennies on the dollar, but it doesn't matter. Why? Because their investment. Okay, so you own oil, okay? Oil refineries, okay? And you own a rail line on top of that. You got basically,